RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, our weekly 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com right now, all Cyber Week long. Get free Nitralized S Berry Blast flavored for free with any $25 purchase after all discounts and before shipping, only on speciesnutrition.com. I'm your host, Adib Faruqi. Glad you can join us on this Wednesday, the 30th day of November in the year 2016. Once again, 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. We're going to get right into it. Dave, you and Johnny are about to board a plane tomorrow to go to San Marino. Why don't you tell our fans a little bit more about it?
Yeah, it's the San Marino Pro, promoted by our good friend Gian Enrico Pica, and it's the last IFBB Pro show of the year. I know there's going to be a lot of, not only just the guys competing, but there's going to be a lot of big names there. I know there's an expo. I'll be at the Species Nutrition booth there. Gian Enrico's a big supporter of Species Nutrition in San Marino and all of Italy. I know Dexter's going to be there. I know George Farah's going to be there. I know that I believe Sean Ray will be there. I think he's bringing in a pretty big contingency of people, not only for the show but for the expo. And I think we're going to be doing some kind of a seminar there too. I haven't gotten too much in the way of what it's about. It might be a debate, or I don't know what it's about. It'll be fun, and I'm sure Johnny will be videotaping the entire thing, so no one will miss anything. So don't worry about the fact that you won't be there. It'll be great coverage, and we never really get coverage in December because nothing really goes on that's too exciting. So this is a weekend that we don't expect in the month of December, where most people are kind of thinking about the holidays. We still have some great content for you guys this coming weekend.
So essentially, it's going to be more or less the end of the 2016 contest season. We'll have videos all weekend long on our YouTube channel. And sorry,
on an airplane, since the Olympia. I didn't travel much this year. Everyone knows that I have a newborn son. He's almost 11 months old now, and so I kind of really limit my traveling, because if I don't, I feel like I'm missing out, and I don't want to leave my wife home alone with the baby. I really want to help be involved with the raising process. But this is a special occasion. Gian Enrico's been supporting my brand and everything we do at RX Muscle for so long that I felt that it was almost our imperative to go there and support what he's doing in Italy. He's been promoting bodybuilding there for probably 20 years. And everyone knows who he is there, and they love bodybuilding. And I happen to have a lot of clients who are Italian. I have a lot of people who I'm sure who follow our shows and everything like that. So this is going to be an opportunity for me to reach out and meet these people. I didn't get to go last year or 2 years ago. I think it was Johnny and Chris Aceto went there. So to me, it's exciting. The worst part of it is the plane trip, because obviously, I'm not in New York anymore. I got to go through Atlanta, and then we have to go through Paris. We have to make like 3 connections to get to San Marino. So it's like a whole day of traveling. So it's a lot of Xanax on the plane. You know how that goes. And I'm sure we'll be doing some videos from all the airports. I'll be breaking Johnny's balls to shoot some stuff of us, and we'll have some entertaining footage. I know it. It always seems to happen. We always run into the most you wouldn't believe who you run into, but sometimes you run into the craziest people. I ran into a bodybuilder at 12 midnight in an airport in Australia once in a convenience store, and he was from the United States. So you never know who you're going to see, and that's the excitement of the whole trip. Now, Johnny, do we have Sid back, or am I doing Ask Dave all by myself today?
You have me. No. I was going to say, I'm like, I never went anywhere, but I'm here anyway. So again, that Johnny and Dave are going to have full coverage. It's going to be on our YouTube channel. It's going to be on rxmuscle.com, so check it all weekend long. And of course, on the YouTube channel right now, Iron Rage, Dave Palumbo, and John Romano talk about the incident, the slap heard around the world, Giannis Margos. And we're still trying to track him down. We're trying to get him on rxmuscle.com. We're going to go to the Muscle Central Forum and check in with Dave Cassett. Dave, what is kefir? I hear it aids with digestion. What do you say?
Kefir is almost like yogurt. They take non-fat milk usually, and they inoculate it with bacterial cultures. And the bacteria grow in there, and they ferment all the sugars in the milk. And they make it like sour, almost like a yogurt. And the good thing is people use it for, putting good probiotic bacteria into their gut. It's like a super yogurt almost, if you may. The problem I have with kefir is it's still dairy, and I'm really not a big dairy guy. Even though there's not a lot of lactose in kefir because the bacteria digest and ferment most of it, it still seems to bother me a little bit. So I usually use coconut kefir if I'm going to use any kefir, or I like to use a kombucha, which is almost like a tea, like a probiotic tea they have, or like I said, my big probiotic that I use is Bubby sauerkraut, which, Bubby is an old Jewish grandmother. And Bubbies know how to make the best sauerkraut. And truth be told, it's a brand of sauerkraut where they inoculate it, just like they do the kefir, with these bacterial cultures, which help it become a great probiotic. The great thing about food probiotics like kefir and Bubby sauerkraut is that you're getting like billions and billions of cultures, whereas if you take a pill, you're usually dealing with millions of cultures. So you're getting way, way, way more bacteria, good bacteria in your gut with these food items that are inoculated as opposed to taking a pill.
Let's go to GCT 20,000. Dave, I hate this show more than the Greek guy hates to lose. There are going to be a lot of jokes about that on this episode. What is the science behind Lipolyze? I've been using it for a month now.
Well, Lipolyze, that was my first species nutrition product that I ever put forth. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to do something different. Everyone else puts out these fat burners that are basically just stimulants, okay? They're basically just caffeine or caffeine-like effects. Back in the day, it was ephedra. And what that basically did was it cranked the body up. It over-revved the body, so the body burned extra calories. It would be like turning your car on and stepping on the accelerator and just letting it rev. You're going to burn more gasoline in the tank, but it puts a lot of strain on the engine, and that's what stimulants do on the body. The stimulants increase cortisol output, which suppress the immune system. It makes it harder to burn fat because cortisol likes to store body fat in the abdominal area, and it just raises blood pressure. It creates anxiety in a lot of people. They can't sleep at night. So, I don't think that that's the right way to burn fat. I really believe that there's two great ways of burning fat. One is suppress appetite, which is what Lipolyze does. It has some natural appetite suppressants. Another way is to waste calories. And, without going into all the science of it, the way Lipolyze wastes calorie is it's similar almost to DNP in the sense. It causes the cells to leak energy, and this energy is leaked as heat, and you feel warm on the stuff. And the problem is that because you're losing energy, the body has to oxidize additional fat. So it tricks the body into burning more fat is what it does. Also, a lot of people have heard of the hormone leptin. Leptin is released by the brain when you eat food, and leptin tells your body you're not hungry. The problem is that you would think that people who are overweight would have very low leptin levels, and the truth is that they have very high leptin levels. And how could that be? Why would a heavy, overweight, obese person have super high leptin levels? Because that would make them not feel hungry. But what we found in these overweight people is that they're not leptin sensitive. They have no receptors for leptin. What Lipolyze does is, because one of the ingredients in there is called African mango, it increases the sensitivity of leptin. So when you take it, you respond to leptin better. So once again, it acts as another appetite suppressant in another way. The third way that Lipolyze works, which I wasn't even aware of originally, the new formula does this, is that it actually rebuilds the mitochondria, which are the organs of the cell that actually oxidize the fats. If you have a more efficient mitochondria, just like if you have a newer car engine or you have a rebuilt car engine, it's gonna burn calories better. It's gonna burn gas better. So that's what this does. It rejuvenates these mitochondria. And a lot of people feel that the reason we age, at least our cells age, is because the mitochondria break down. So because of the ingredients in here that rebuild the mitochondria, it actually, Lipolyze has an anti-aging effect. And I actually use the product not for fat burning because I'm way lean enough. I use it as an anti-aging product because I want my mitochondria to be efficient, and I want them to be rebuilt, and I want them to work well, because not only will they burn fat, but they will actually produce energy efficiently. And that's really what wanes as we get older, energy production.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. We continue in the Muscle Central Forum. If you want to join us, you can join us live on YouTube, on our Instagram page, Facebook, or tweeting using hashtag Ask Dave. Let's go to Anthony Triguero. Dave, how much time do you recommend between cycles, and does this time include while you're on PCT?
You know, I like to say the off period does not include PCT because you're really not off when you're on Clomid or HCG. You're still taking something, you know, that's artificially elevating, you know, testosterone levels. Not the same to the extent as when you're on a cycle, but it's still working. So I like to get people on 2 weeks of HCG, then 2 weeks of Clomid, and then go off for 6 weeks. So it's a total of 10 weeks not on anabolic steroids. You're still going to be on something those first 4 weeks. And I find that that's the ideal optimal off period where it'll enable you to recover so that when you go back on, your receptors are fresh. Now, if you want to stay off a little longer than that, that's fine, but I wouldn't stay off less than that, especially if you did a whole year of cycling, 8 months on, something like that, you know, off-season, pre-contest. You really want to give your body that good 10 weeks of rest and relaxation, and then you're ready to go. Usually guys do it at the end of the year, and then by the beginning of January, they're ready to go back on.
Let's go to Lucas Borough 123. Dave, would you recommend clenbuterol to a casual lifter and not just someone on a contest prep? If so, what structure?
You know, clenbuterol, and I said this before, is I think the best fat burner known to man right now. I think that there's nothing better that's safe and that effectively delivers very fast weight loss. And, you know, having said that, you know, it can be used by pretty much anyone, assuming you don't have any, once again, if you have blood pressure or heart issues, you might want to just check with a doctor. You know, the good thing about clenbuterol is it drops your blood pressure, so it's not going to raise your blood pressure. But, you know, some people have heart arrhythmias and stuff like that. I don't know if those, I wouldn't recommend that unless you're getting checked out and you got clearance on that. But, you know, it's basically an asthma medication that happens to stimulate receptors that we think they're beta 2 or beta 3 receptors. We're not sure. The fat cells do have beta 3 receptors, and they think that clenbuterol might have some beta 3 action. But when you stimulate these receptors, fat is mobilized. So for a regular guy, I would use like 20 micrograms twice a day. Maybe go up to 20 micrograms 3 times a day for fat loss. You know, go up and down with it over 8 to 10 weeks, and I think that's fine. Usually pre-contest, I have guys and girls stay on it for 16 weeks. You know, we'll go up to 120 micrograms a day, 20 micrograms 6 times a day. And of course, I cycle them down after it's over. But it's a pretty safe drug, like I said, assuming you don't have any existing health issues.
Let's go to Gorilla. Dave, what is your opinion on the ECA stack? Do you consider it safe and effective?
The ECA is ephedra, caffeine, and aspirin. And, you know, the reason why the aspirin is there is because it extends the life, I believe, of the ephedra. Ephedra is a kind of like a cheap rate, I like to call it clenbuterol. Okay, just like ephedra also is like a cheap rate crystal meth. Okay, crystal meth is like the supreme, stimulant of stimulants, and it's made from ephedra. Well, clenbuterol isn't made from ephedra, but ephedra is like the first beta agonist ever found. It's like a natural beta agonist, and most drugs are kind of refined from ephedra. So does it work to burn fat? Yeah, but ephedra, the problem with ephedra is that not only does it stimulate beta 2 receptors, it also stimulates beta 1 receptors that are found on the heart. So the more ephedra you take, the faster your heart beats, which is obviously not great for you. It does stress the body out a little bit. A little ephedra can be good because it's a nice neurostimulant, where it keeps your brain nice and focused. Too much, obviously, you get shaky. It's also a good fat burner in a sense, not as good as clenbuterol, but you don't want to take the two of them together because they both compete for the same receptors. Clenbuterol is a much better fat burner, so we don't want clenbuterol's effect being dulled by the ephedra. But I guess if that's all you had, it's okay. It's like I said, it's not as good as clenbuterol, though.
Let's take some questions from our YouTube viewers. Again, if you're watching us for the first time on our YouTube channel, first of all, we welcome you to RX Muscle and the RX Muscle YouTube channel. Like this video. We will continue to pump out this kind of content. Comment. We have also subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. We are on a track right now to reach about 70,000 by the beginning of 2017. And again, we cannot thank you enough for your support. Let's go to Jason Netherland. Do you think the more classic look of the bodybuilders in the 80s and 90s relative to today's look is primarily due to nutrition, drugs, or training?
Yes. It's due to everything. It's due to the fact that we know nutrition is better. We are more knowledgeable about what foods to eat, proteins, good essential fats, enough carbs to fuel the processes. We have better supplements today. We have better training techniques. We have better gyms. We have better equipment. We have more knowledge with regard to that. We know how to apply the performance-enhancing drugs better. So yeah, it's just technology. It's how it's like why are guys running the mile faster today? Yeah, there's no cinder tracks anymore and they have permatracks, but that's not the reason. Technology. We learn better training techniques. We're not afraid anymore of that magical 4-minute mile. We've pushed past that already, so the barriers are removed. People have broken through that ground, and people eat better now. The athletes, they recover better. And so there's, it's just a combination of everything. And so you can't just say, there's IGF-1 today, and that's why guys are bigger, or there's growth hormone. No, it's a combination of everything, and that's always the way it's been.
Let's go to Mark Naus, I believe. Should you go off Testalize before a blood test for TRT?
I don't think it's necessary. Testalize balances your hormones, so it will raise testosterone a little bit, lowers estrogen and DHT. So as long as you can continue taking it, I wouldn't go up before. It's not going to raise your testosterone like to the point where they're going to say, no hormone replacement. If you guys contact TitanMedicalCenter.com like I told you to do, if you tell them you're on hormone replacement, you don't have to go off the existing hormone replacement you're on. You could just show them, hey, look, I'm taking 200 milligrams a week. That's why my testosterone's high. Now, if your testosterone's through the roof because you're taking 3 shots a week, you're definitely going to have to go off that. But if your testosterone's a little high, it's not going to prevent you. It's not like when you go to your normal doctor and say, I want testosterone replacement, he's like, oh, but your testosterone's 275. And you're like, yeah, but 250 is the low. And you're like, I feel terrible. He's like, well, you're technically in the norm. Hormone replacement clinics will not disqualify you from hormone replacement if you're a little over the edge. So even if you were like 350 or 400, that's still low. So you're going to get hormone replacement on that. If you're 1,000, however, which is over the high limit, then you're not going to get it. So in that sense, you probably need to go off of if you're taking a gel or you're taking a testosterone shot once a week. If you're too high, you might have to come off for a week or 2 or 3 just to get your levels down into the normal range, normal low range. But Testalize won't mess it up.
Let's go to Jimmy J. Question about Benadryl. What about Benadryl to clear receptors for Clen use?
I've answered this question a lot. A lot of people ask about ketotifen, which is another antihistamine. And for some reason, Bill Llewellyn wrote in his book that antihistamines, certain ones, specifically ketotifen, will clean clenbuterol receptors and make them more effective. And I just, I've had a million athletes try it. I tried it myself. All antihistamines do is make you tired. So if you want to walk around exhausted, yawning all the time, take ketotifen or any other antihistamine. It's not going to make the clenbuterol work better. Never seen it happen, and it just doesn't work.
Let's go to who do we have here? So Joe Abandoned, I guess that's the name. Joe Abandoned, looking to improve cardio performance with one lung. He says he has never smoked. He has shortness of breath. Sometimes he vomits. He says life cycle. I guess that can be any cycle. Any ideas as far as how he can improve his cardio with one lung?
Well, I mean, cardio is really not necessarily lung dependent. It's more heart related. How fast the heart can pump blood, oxygenated blood to the rest of the muscles. So building up your heart is more important. Now, obviously, if you can't get enough oxygen into your body to oxygenate the heart itself, that could be a problem. I don't know if that's what his limiting factor is. I don't know if his limiting factor is his lung or if it's his heart. So I would continue to do aerobic exercise and build your heart up more and more. Obviously, do breathing exercises, deep breathing exercises where you breathe in for 10 seconds, hold, and then breathe out for 10 seconds will build lung volume. Obviously, using one of those machines where you blow into it can build lung volume as well. I think it's a combination. But like I said, I'm not sure what's limiting your body's ability to get oxygen to the muscles. Is it the lungs or is it your heart? Usually it's the heart.
Buzz Chillington, I hate this show more than Kai hates grapefruit jokes and Olympia judges. Question, I know you don't advocate the use of DNP, but I was wondering, when you finish a DNP cycle, how should someone go about rebounding and filling out or dropping water?
Well, usually when you stop DNP, the water just weight comes off you. I don't know why DNP causes a lot of fluid retention, but it does. And like you know, and I've said this before, I do not recommend anyone takes DNP. I think it's a very unsafe drug. I know Crazy Tony Huge over there at enhancedmuscle.com loves it and stuff like that and advocates, but I am not an advocate of it. It's one of the few drugs that I don't think anyone should ever take. I don't think it's worth the risk. However, once you stop it, usually after a week, the fluid retention leaves the body.
Let's go to Marv Mangubat. Dave, I've been dieting for many months, but been successful on a low-carb, low-fats, and high-protein diet. I'm about 16% body fat. So far, I feel the weight loss has stalled. I've read about carb refeed. Do you recommend this? How many times a week to do this? And what's the best way to go about it if you recommend it?
I recommend anyone who's followed my ketogenic diet knows that I do recommend a cheat meal once a week that has carbs in it. One meal, not the whole day. And if you're doing, a ketogenic diet, very, very low carb all week long, and one day a week you have a cheat meal and it spikes your metabolism, that usually works. And if that doesn't work, if you up your cardio, there's other variables you can play with. But if you hit a point where you're like eating almost no food, you're doing a ton of cardio and you're not losing weight, in those cases, a lot of times I will add carbs back to people's. I'll do it counterintuitive in a sense. I'll feed the person more. And I only do that for a week sometimes. And I'll do it for a week if the person's really stagnant, and that usually will bring them out of it. And a lot of times they'll actually lose weight sometimes when I put the carbs initially back in. Then it kind of stabilizes, and then I can remove them again and start them over. Or I might just tell them, a lot of times I work with a lot of women and they get stagnant too. I'll just say, tomorrow I want you to eat 25 grams of carbs at every single meal, and give me pictures the next day. And a lot of times they're like, I lost weight. I don't know how that happened. So usually sometimes one day is enough to boost the metabolism. When I usually do that though, I use clean carbs. When I'll boost, I'll give them carbs every single meal. I'll give them like I said, white rice, white potatoes, something that's a fast glycemic carb that will, really supercharge their metabolism. Because think about it, if you're really carb depleted and you put 120, 130 grams of carbs in for the day, you're just reloading glycogen essentially, but a lot of times it's enough, the extra calories is enough to stimulate metabolism.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Right now on RxMuscle.com and the YouTube channel, Dave and John Romano respond to the slap heard around the world, Giannis Margos, their reaction. It's on Iron Rage. Also live with Ant Bales. And coming tomorrow, live with Luke Sando, the 2016 UK BFF overall winner. All that on RxMuscle.com and the RX Muscle YouTube channel. Let's go to weights before dates. Is eating 7 to 10 food meals a day like Jay Cutler and Rich Piana the best way to put on massive size?
If you have a fast metabolism, it absolutely is. I used to eat 12 times a day, but I didn't start out eating like that when I wasn't that big. When I wasn't that big, I was eating 6 times a day. So if your metabolism demands it or dictates it, then you do it. If it doesn't, if you happen to gain weight easy and you start eating 10 meals a day, you might turn into a fat slob. So you have to base it on your metabolism and how your body responds to food. I know guys that are huge guys that Akeem Williams barely eats 5 meals a day, and the guy just grows like a weed. So it's really dependent on your metabolism.
Let's go to our YouTube channel and Banksy Muscle. Dave, is it possible to go from 20% to 8% body fat while only on keto diet? What are the techniques you would use to overcome plateaus while on the diet?
It's absolutely possible to lose that kind of weight on a ketogenic diet. It's probably much easier, matter of fact, on a ketogenic diet than to do it on a non-ketogenic diet, because when you're eating carbs, you're releasing insulin. Insulin's a fat storage hormone. And not everyone plateaus on a diet. I've worked with people, they go the whole 16 weeks. They don't plateau once. They don't get stuck. I barely have to increase their fat burners and their cardio. Their bodies respond well to it. They love it. So not everyone stagnates, and if they do, then you address it on an individual by individual basis, whether you have to feed them more or up their cardio. The last thing I do is feed them more. Usually that's a last resort, like when nothing else is working. When I got them maxed out on cardio, I got them, their diet is as low as I can get it without them, getting out of control. When I have them doing a ton of cardio, once all that's maxed out, then I might say, rather than cut back, let me give them more food for a little bit of a time period and see what happens. And a lot of times that'll break them out of it.
Reminder right now on speciesnutrition.com, free Nitralize S Berry Blast flavor. Can't you say that right? Berry Blast flavor with $25 purchase after all discounts and before shipping all through Cyber Week on speciesnutrition.com. 713 AG. Tell Dave I hate his show so much I would rather listen to George Farah and Hani Rambod argue in their native tongue as to who is the better guru. So you can have Arabic versus Farsi. Two-part question. Let's go to the first one first. How do you maintain muscle mass while on PCT? I hear people use IGF-1 and HGH. What would you recommend?
I would recommend not worrying about muscle mass while on PCT and off. You're not going to lose muscle if you eat enough food, okay, the right kind of foods, you train right, and you get enough sleep. Okay, what happens is you deflate. You got to remember, when you take anabolic steroids, your blood volume goes up. Why? Because you're producing more red blood cells. Steroids cause, hematopoiesis, which is a process whereby the bone marrow produces more red blood cells. When you have more red blood cells in your bloodstream, you have more blood volume. And you get that pump, you feel stronger, you feel bigger. Okay, when you start losing weight, after the first, 30, 40 days, you start losing those extra red blood cells. And you start deflating, you lose fluid retention, and you feel smaller. You're really not small. You're not losing muscle mass in 6 to 8 weeks. It's not happening unless you stop training or eating properly or resting properly. Assuming you're eating, training, and resting, you're not losing anything. You might lose weight on the scale. It's mostly water. I would say 4 weeks after you go back on, you will be probably better than you were before you stopped. That's just the case. It's the fact. You can't get crazy about losing muscle. You're not going to lose muscle. I promise you. It takes. I try to lose muscle and I can't lose it. Okay, muscle doesn't go away that fast. Bloat and fluid retention goes away fast, but not muscle.
We have a couple of questions on legs. Let's take this one in particular about calves. STF Vujic wants to know how you bring up calves. Do you recommend supersets, drop sets? What did you do to bring up your calves?
I have told the story many times. I know we're always constantly getting new viewers, and I want to thank the new viewers and tell them, look, if you're watching the show and you like the information we're giving you, and we do this every week, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button below, show us the love. I'm very shocked. The last couple of weeks, Sid, we got like over 2,000 new, subscribers on the YouTube channel, which was a huge burst. Where it came from, I don't know, but I'm very happy that everyone's enjoying all the programming we're doing here. Now, getting back to calves, I always had weak calves. I had huge quads, and I had these small calves because they're very high, and I didn't know what to do with it. And someone was teaching me in Gold's Gym Venice, actually. He was like a Charles Glass-like trainer there, how to do calves one day it's back in the early 90s. And he's like, you got to get up on your toes on the big toe of your big foot and on the balls of your feet and really squeeze, almost like you're doing like a contracted curl. And I felt it. I did it with really lightweight. I'm like, that's interesting. And then I realized that I always noticed that I always feel the first set of calves I do way more than all the other sets. When I start getting to my third, fourth, fifth set, I don't even feel my calves anymore. I feel the bottom of my feet hurting more. And I don't know if that's because I have big feet or I have flat feet or a combination, but I know a lot of people tell me the same thing. The bottom of their feet hurt more than their calves do. So what I said is, I wonder if instead of just doing lightweight, warm-ups and then building up to this heavyweight, I'm doing a few sets. What if I just went right to my heavy set, didn't warm up? Since I'm feeling the first set better than all the other sets, I'll do heavyweights for the first set. So I picked a weight where I could only get 15 reps. And I would start with standing, calf raises. Heaviest weight I can do for 15 reps. I do 15 reps. I go over to the seated calf machine, wait about 3 minutes till I recovered, and then I would do the heaviest set I could do with that for 15 solid full range reps. And guess what? My calves out of nowhere started growing like a weed. So to me, that means that I was never really, when I would get to the heavy sets, my bottom of my feet hurt so much my calves never got a good workout. That's number one. And I was overtraining them. So what I do is I do 2 sets literally. 1 set of standing, 1 set of seated twice a week, and that's it. And my calves grew. They still look good to this day.
Time for one more question. Again, to reiterate on Dave's point, we have seen a spike roughly 3,000 new fans over the course of the last 2 weeks. And again, we appreciate you for your support. If you're watching us for the first time, hit the subscribe button below. Again, Dave and Johnny are going to be going to San Marino this weekend. They're going to have all sorts of videos of San Marino Pro. You're not going to want to miss that. The last question from Zane.fit. I'm not sure if we've ever gotten a question, Dave, about waist expansion, but there seems to be a lot of controversy. I've heard everything from not wearing a belt to HGH to insulin. In your opinion, what is the true reason most IFBB pro bodybuilders have waists that have expanded over time?
You know, it's a combination of things. It's not just one thing. A lot of people would say, oh, it's IGF and GH. A lot of people would say it's from deadlifting. You know, a lot of people would say it's from squatting. It thickens your waist. Well, look, it's a combination. When you grow, okay. Remember, the guys back in the 80s and even early 90s were like, you know, if you were Lee Haney was 245, he was the biggest guy by 20 pounds. Everyone else was like in the 220s, 210, 205. So of course you're going to have smaller waists. When you get into the 250s, 260s, 270s, 280s, now you talk a lot of muscle in your body, and that means that the waist is going to get thicker too. There's no way around it. If you have a short torso, you know, the abs are going to look bulging, and that's where you see these guys, you know, looking like pregnant women. If you have a long torso, okay, it'll hold that weight better, and you don't see those on those big guys, on the taller guys, the long torsos as much. It's a structural thing. Has GH and insulin use contributed to bulging waistlines? I think so. I also think that when you eat a tremendous amount of food, which I had to do to get as big as I did, and I'm sure most people do, it could also cause the stomach to become distended because there's always so much food in there pushing against that wall, the abdominal wall. It could stretch out. I believe that there's a stretching effect that does not go back. Now, if you look at my stomach now and you see when I suck it in, it's flat and small, but I'm also, 60 pounds lighter than I was when I competed. So it's a multitude of things as to why that happens. The key is to try to minimize all the effects that lead to that.
That is going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Once again, go to speciesnutrition.com, Nitralize S Berry Blast for free, $25 purchase after all discounts and before shipping. For Dave Palumbo, Johnny Styles, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next week.